Think of the people you interact with every day. Would you want to spend a day in a canoe with them? Hi, I'm Nathan Mercero, CEO of Planning Alternatives. We're a disruptive brand in the financial planning space with a point of view that true wealth has nothing to do with money. Growing up in a small town in Canada, I experienced examples of families with money and without. It started me on this journey of understanding wealth and the idea that spending a day in a canoe with someone could be one of the best investments you could make. Join me as I sit down with leaders, entrepreneurs, creatives, rule breakers, and friends to discover their perspective of true wealth. And maybe you'll start to shift yours. Well, I'm excited today to be joined by Dr. Reggie Sehgal as a doctor of chiropractic, entrepreneur, and wellness leader focused on helping people improve their quality of life through a more integrated approach to health. Reggie has deep expertise in dealing with chronic pain, mobility, nutrition, lifestyle-based care. His work sits at the intersection of physical health and human performance. Reggie, we met recently at a connector dinner that we were attending in Detroit. And it's a pleasure meeting you on Day in a Canoe. And it's also a pleasure hanging out with a fellow Canadian.
There you go. Yes, I think we hit it off right off the bat. So that was good.
I love how serendipity happens when you walk into a situation or a room of people, and one way or another, you find a connection with the right person. So glad that we had a great conversation. Your work is fascinating. Would love you to share with listeners what you do in terms of your approach, and then your journey on how you got into the space of supporting people.
Yeah, I mean, I started about 27 years ago. So I've been practicing for that long. I have, first starting in chiropractic, I started when I was 15 years old. I got an injury playing hockey, obviously, as a Canadian, playing high school hockey, got hit from behind. From then, it started that path of like, how do I fix my back kind of deal? And I was referred to a chiropractor near my high school. And that kind of started there, and went off to university, went to University of Windsor. And then kind of trying to figure out what I was going to do. And then I remember that chiropractor that, was so busy. I wanted to know what he does. So I dove into that and ended up at St. Louis for chiropractic school. And that's where my career began 4 years later, and settled into, actually, I was in Toronto, is where I first started, right in the Canadian boards. And then eventually moved my way back home, which was in Windsor in the Detroit metro area. Started as an associate, and then 4 years later, I opened my own practice. And so that's kind of how it began.
I find that when I experience pain, the world changes. Like, actually, nothing exists except my pain. And you're dealing with people navigating that, I mean, day in and day out. What have you learned between the relationship of what physical pain does with the emotional stress, and just how to start integrating repair to the body when all that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, that is one difficult question that most people kind of, because when pain does strike, most people, they think, first and foremost, it's no one else has ever felt that. So they always feel that their pain is unique. So obviously they look at pain as something that, that may not never go away, which in 27 years of practice, I see this every day when people say, I feel like this is never going to go away. So but the emotional part of that is, as a doctor of chiropractic, we're almost like the psychologist as well, to help, push them off get them back off that, jumping off that cliff of, it's going to be okay, and healing takes time. So dealing with pain and chronic pain, as most people have suffered, I think the statistic is 80% of Americans will suffer some sort of back pain in their lifetime. So that's a true statistic. And the irony of all of that is only 12% seek chiropractic care for their pain. So you look at that big gap of like, what are people actually doing? And in this world right now, it seems like it's either a drug or a medication or it's a surgery. But I think now we've become a lot more understanding of our body, and I think the technology is there, and people want to get healthier. I mean, I think it's just the momentum shift of, the allopathic mindset to the non-allopathic mindset of like, there are exercises are important. Chiropractic is now becoming mainstream for back pain, and helping people navigate through that. So, it's a gratitude thing I always feel, of seeing these people come in and broken, and fixing them and allowing their own body to heal. which is what we do. We're just, removing interference so their body has the potential to heal.
We're in a culture that really celebrates productivity and like grinding and pushing your body, setting limits, then exceeding them. And, a lot of people are just kind of like pushing their body off the edge of a cliff too. How do you help people recalibrate to see that maybe they're literally over their skis and they need to find more balance?
Yeah, I mean, and that's just, again, pain is that indicator. Pain is a very motivational indicator to do something about it. And one of the things that makes us unique about what we're doing is we try to gravitate towards what is it that the pain has stopped them from doing that they enjoy. So, Nathan, people typically don't take call to action on anything until it stops them from doing anything that they really enjoy, like their activity, like their workout. So they'll kind of live with it, they'll navigate through it. And what we're seeing is a lot of, I can't work out anymore. I can't ski anymore. I can't snowboard, whatever it is. That's when people usually take action of now I think it's time that I need to stop grinding and get back to getting some help.
And is there any time when it's too late? I mean, is that a message, someone who might have already experienced some significant life trauma and their body is signaling and they've overrode those signals? Is it too late to try to recalibrate?
Yeah, it sometimes it really is. And unfortunately, we see those types of patients as well, where it's like, you know what, you've waited too long. And now it becomes a surgical intervention. Now it becomes chronic pain management to reverse the effects of sometimes the damage that has been done. Sometimes cannot be, and it's unfortunate. And those are the patients that typically, go under the knife and live with chronic pain.
We talk about true wealth and what's available for all of us through different currencies of life. Money is certainly a key currency, but health, physicality, being active and mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually healthy. How do you guide people on things that they can do now on that front without so they don't have to hit the wall to take action?
That's a great question because again, when we look at, the first number one goal for our world is like, how do I get you out of pain? But most importantly, how do I graduate to wellness? Right? How to keep you well so you can enjoy those things in life. I mean, we all work hard to, for that dollar to spend when we retire kind of deal. And we put a lot of energy into that, and the last thing that you want to do is to spend it from doctor to doctor and trying to figure out your health that that maybe at that point people try to save money to sacrifice their health and that in the end of it they end up spending it because to get their health back, and it's unfortunate. We see that a lot. So what we try to do is try to help people go through that process of like, hey, let's get you out of pain, but most importantly, let's keep you well. And there's the nutritional aspect of it, there's the exercise aspect of it, obviously the chiropractic aspect of it. So there's many different facets. We feel, how do we keep that well? And I think at least 50% of our practice is just wellness. It's people that have been through the crisis and they no longer want to go there. And so they want to stay well. And we've seen to find the recipe for those types of patients that's the kind of avenue that they're looking for.
Help us understand what the difference in at life stages look like in the topic or focus of wellness. So I remember in my 20s, I was a superhero. I could do anything. I didn't really, I enjoyed activity, working out, sports, things like that. And now that I'm in my 50s, it's like, whoa, things are a little bit different. My brain thinks I'm in my 20s and my body says, no way, man,
Yeah.
you're not there.
Yeah.
So if we just take, kind of early, mid, or late stage life stages, what are good wellness practices, even starting early, that you would tell younger people? Let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example is, I mean, obviously for my own family, I'll use my kids for an example. I lead by example. So nutrition is very important. That's, what we put in our bodies first and foremost. Exercise is important. Disciplines are important. Those are things at the young age that I look at my kids right now. They're actually in the basement working out right now. So they just finished school. They graduated from school. So it's those disciplines that I try to instill, and the same thing in our practice. And with our team, it's like there are things in wellness that you start, but one thing that we cannot stop is the aging process. It's like copy of the copy of the copy that as the years go on, that our body, deteriorates and can break down. But the beauty of it now, Nathan, there's so much more that we do know. Not to get really off topic, but things like peptides are becoming very popular right now. I mean, there's rejuvenation processes that we can kind of help stop the aging process and repair the body naturally through different amino acids. I mean, so I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly kind of figuring things out how I can do more for humanity in our city and in our state and in the world of what we do, that there's so much more that we can do. So right now, especially the young ones, is like, the most important is to give them the disciplines of like treat your body well, and hopefully it'll take care of you in the end.
That's great insight. What about people as we age? What should they be focused on? And I'm thinking specifically that with AI, with all these medical advancements that are extending our biological age, it doesn't necessarily mean people are going to be healthier. And so I know there's been a focus on what's called lifespan and the quality of life and extending that in a lot of areas, specifically with weights and nutrition and flexibility and fascia work and all of these different interrelated components. What are you seeing for people as they age, that 60, 70 age plus, that is really important to maintain?
That's a great question again. I mean, and again, I see that I think the average age of our patients is actually 47 years of age. I knew that because I checked that recently. I was just curious. But we do have some patients that obviously in the 70s and the 80s. And at that point, you go back and look at what can I give them the best quality of life as of right now. We know that we're not going to live till 150 years of age. It doesn't exist right now. There's some people that are claiming that they will live till 125. So that's amazing. But as of right now, and in the normal population of people that we're seeing right now at that age group is, mentally staying healthy, mentally, physically, and moving. It's easier, it's harder to hit a moving target, as some of my elderly patients say. So they keep moving, and then, exercise, walks, those types of things. But again, nutrition, even at that age, is very important as well.
I've personally find that movement is so critical, and we were engineered, we're designed to move, and many times we get stuck at a desk behind, facing a computer, or the tech neck effect of always looking at our phones and things like that, and it limits mobility. And there's something about the simple act of movement, simply walking, is some of the greatest help that we can give our body. And I think these things get overlooked and maybe underutilized simply because we people may think they're too basic, but our body keeps the score. And there's a book with that title, and it will always give us the message of what truth is. And we can override it, try to override it with our brain, but our body's got to say, no, I'm not buying what you're selling.
Yeah.
And it's the key to listen to that.
And some of the elderly patients, one of their issues is that because they're in pain, they can't move, right? So, like the cognitive behavioral therapy part of that is like Tai Chi, something you could actually do in a chair, but it just mentally creates more movement within the body, as you were saying, that actually creates more mindset and health wise for your mental health. So, there's just some of the things that some patients, even if they're wheelchair bound, which we see, I said, there's things that you can still do, that you can do in the chair or even as you age to help, but you got to move, even as simple things. So Tai Chi has been a big popular thing that we've seen in the more with the cognitive behavioral type of elderly patients when they get kind of the dementia type of issues. But that's been very helpful, what I've seen so far.
I practiced Tai Chi myself this
Well,
morning,
there
so
you
I'm a
go.
believer in that practice. So,
Meditation. I
um,
mean, all of that stuff is good.
you're singing my language. Those are you're singing my song rather. You're focusing on things that anchor the mind, get the squirrels out of our head, ground us to the present moment, move the energy that exists around our body. Sometimes we can get tense and stressed, and everything gets contained in this container of our body. And so just keeping that movement going is so key to great health and a great day. Final set of questions. Curious about, as you look back at your life experience, what is a lesson or two that jumps out that has been meaningful to you, that contributed to either greater awareness, life lesson that you've learned? That's what Day in a Canoe is about, when people share their personal experiences so that others can learn from you.
That's so funny you say that, because even now that, as we're going into our third practice right now, and, I'm kind of pushing the team a little bit more on, taking action and getting things done. And, in the younger years, it was like, tomorrow will be fine. Tomorrow will be fine. Right. And, as we get older, as I'm in the 50s as well now, and just 2 weeks ago. And I thought, man, what's difference between and what did I learn from back then and what I'm implementing now is, as we age, we realize we don't have as much time as we did when we were younger. So I think the discipline of, in the last 30 years of my life to where I'm at now, it's like if things need to change, we have to change them, right? Because nothing changes when nothing changes, right? So a lot more of my mindset now is, putting more things in my head to help myself grow so I can help others is the biggest thing that I've seen that has been working. And sometimes we forget about that when, it's not just about the dollars and cents, it's about more than that, because that eventually will come, that if we're doing it the right way, right? I think a lot of the striving for myself is like, what more am I going to do for myself? What more can I put more in my body so I can retain healthier? What can I mentally feed my mind? What can I read more of that gives me that energy, that strength, like meditation? It's funny. It's recently I thought, meditation is hard for a lot of people because they wake up in the morning, they're like, don't want to meditate. They feel like they're going to fall asleep. And I read something that was really interesting. It says when meditation is working is when you crave more of it. And I thought, oh my God, maybe it is working. Because I get up, I'm like, maybe this is what I need, right? And I want more of it. So I think those small little routines, like the morning miracle, a book is out there, it's just, and I realized back then it's not sleeping in late. It's like getting up in the morning and taking action for yourself. If that's what you're looking for, if you're looking to grow and you continue to grow and build and, have a great life and for your family and your future, like it's got to start with us, right? Wouldn't you agree, Nathan? It's got to start with us. So that's kind of what
100%.
yeah, that's kind of where I've realized it's like 2 things, and I teach with the kids too. It's like there's only difference between successful and unsuccessful people is just their disciplines. That's it. So have more disciplines than somebody else.
And it's rooted in personal responsibility. No
Mhm.
one else is going to fix us. There's no other outside factor that we can chase in hopes of I take this pill and I'm cured of everything. No, if a friend of mine says freedom is an inside job. So if we really want to
Mhm.
have a life that's impactful and healthful and engaging, it's going to be us
That's right.
that does the work. And the work is physical, mental, spiritual, relational. There's just a whole spectrum of how we interact with one another. And for me, I was introduced to meditation about 6 years ago. And initially I thought, no, that's for everyone else. That's not for me. And I started just integrating that into my routine. And it's been the most transformative experience I've had in my life. Would encourage everyone to pursue that. And there's many ways to express meditation. You can be in a walk in nature and just feel the peace and the flow of where you're at. So it's available to all of us. And it's just up to us to open the door and cross the threshold into that space.
I always wonder too, it's like, how did you flip the switch too of like, because it's like you do it and then you're like, am I doing it or is this even worth it? Like how did you flip that switch where you're like, this is exactly what I needed?
It wasn't a moment where that switch got flipped. It was a process of realizing that I had a lot of things in my head that weren't that were kind of squirrels running around and they weren't helping. And meditation was just kind of letting the squirrels out of my head and
Exactly.
finding peace and pleasantness in the moment. I think they asked Buddha, "What did you gain from meditation?" And he said, "Nothing. But what I've lost is fear, anxiety, depression, concern about tomorrow." He goes through this list of things. I'm like, that's a pretty good list. I think I'll sign up for that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's the invitation for people when they're looking to find more peace from the inside and let it be expressed on the outside. Reggie, I want to thank you for your time. It's been great to connect. Appreciate your story and jumping in the canoe today to share your point of view.
Listen, I appreciate it, and like again, I had a great time at the, and I appreciate the invite. But yeah, this is great. I've been thinking about it all week, and it's been great. So thank you for that.
See you soon.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review. To discover what wealth means to you, please take our assessment at planningalt.com.